What's up everyone, it's Claudio here, the owner-operator of Mod Society, and in this video I'll be going over everything I did the last 10 years to get to where I was making at least $2,000 every Saturday night for the past 3 years straight. If you're a musician, a band leader, an entrepreneur, or just anybody interested in the back end of running a professional band, this video is for you. I want to shine some light on the mysterious finances of a working musician, and hopefully it'll help a lot of you throughout your journey. So a few weeks ago, I was looking through my hard drives and came across my tax returns from 2011 and 2012. I was surprised to remember that in 2011, at age 28, I was making $28,635 a year. I've come a long way in these past 10 years. And check it out, $33,500 in 2012. That's a 17% increase in 1 year. So way to go, young 29-year-old Claudio. I was mostly making a living teaching private lessons at a private school in the Upper East Side, as well as group bucket drumming classes in a public school in the Bronx. I had some days where I would visit up to 3 different schools in Manhattan, the Bronx, and Brooklyn. So I got to know the subway system really well. In my 20s, I never worried about making money as a musician. I cared about writing music and playing with my jazz band, and I was more concerned with being an artist. Fun fact, in the entire decade of my 20s, the total amount of money that I made in those 10 years as a working musician was less than $1,000. I think I played 6 real paying gigs in those 10 years, and they added up to $900 and something. This is now so incredible to think about. I just didn't have a money mindset, and I didn't care about pursuing money. After all, I was an artist, and as far as I knew, artists didn't make much money, so why bother trying? So when I turned 30 in 2013, I reflected on my previous decade. I had accomplished a lot. 2 degrees in music, my first album of original jazz, and just a few years prior, I had finally figured out how to pay my cell phone all by myself. But a few things were beginning to bother me. Thing 1, when my dad came into town, he would always take us out to dinner. The bill would sometimes be over $1,000 for a group, and he would never hesitate to pay. I started thinking, how would I ever be able to do that? I could barely afford $50 for brunch once a month. I wanted financial freedom. Thing 2, playing with my jazz band in New York was very difficult. There were just way too many musicians trying to get the same bar and restaurant gigs. This has created a very low pay rate since bar and restaurants have realized that they can get a young group of talented musicians to play at little to no cost. I remember on one occasion when I paid my band $9 each for some gig at a bar. I couldn't even make it $10 and I was so embarrassed. Musician wages were too low. I wanted to pay musicians a professional pay rate. I'd always heard musicians talk about their wedding gigs and how they were always booked on Saturday nights. At 29 years old, I had never done a wedding gig, and I decided to investigate this world of private events. So I took a few members of my band and decided to make this new band where every decision revolved around making money. This idea to start a side project with these very specific intentions was the beginning of everything, and I'm so glad that I summoned the courage to do so. Back then, being in a wedding band was not something you bragged about. They were all inherently cheesy and not cool. I was determined to change that. With this vision, I started promoting my trio for cocktail events through this website called Gigmasters, which is now The Bash. It's essentially a bidding war between bands where usually the lowest bid got the gig. This was awful, but I just didn't know a better way to break into the scene. So I charged $320 for 1 hour with my trio. I paid the other 2 guys $100 each, and I got $20 extra for gas. I remember the first time I made $100 for 1 hour of playing music. Man, I felt like such a baller. Slowly over the next year, I was able to build a name for myself in the industry by growing my reviews and references and creating more content for our website. At one wedding after our cocktail hour set, I took a look into the ballroom to check out the entertainment for the reception. I was blown away. 10-piece band, full horn section, big-ass sound system, everybody on the dance floor. I had to get into that. So I took my trio and expanded it to 5 pieces: guitar, bass, drums, sax, and a singer. This was a whole new world and added a ton of variety to our repertoire. I still remember the first time I played Let's Stay Together. I was sight reading the chart because honestly, I had never heard of this song, but I was loving every second of it. It was just so different from the traditional jazz repertoire that I was used to. It's still one of my favorite songs to play during dinner. Not knowing how much to charge, I started low and pretty much worked with anybody's budget. I remember on one gig that I had screwed up the budget so badly. I had miscalculated the payroll costs, miscalculated the transportation, and I was in the negative even after they paid me. Luckily, the client gave us a generous tip, and I was able to make a little over $50 for that 4-hour reception. On another gig, I was making $300, but I forgot my blazer and my shoes at the venue, and I never got them back. At least I broke even. And let's not forget the number of gigs that paid $50, but I ended up getting a $65 ticket for double parking in the streets of Manhattan, just trying to unload my equipment. Over the next couple of years, I grew a roster of musicians and singers and started gaining more traction as a dance band. Still, I had no idea what I was doing or how to handle the finances. I remember in those early days, we would play a song, finish it, then have like some kind of a team huddle to discuss what song we were gonna play next and how to start it. Meanwhile, everybody on the dance floor is waiting for us to start the next song. I can't believe we did that. Back then, I was only charging a small fraction of what I charge now, so they got what they paid for. After about a year of this, I could see that there was some real money in this industry. I just didn't quite have the right clients. I needed bigger budget clients who wanted a bigger, more impressive band. For this, I needed a bigger team, a bigger sound system, and more professional content for our site. Basically, I needed to invest more money. Throughout this whole time, I was living in a 3-bedroom apartment in Williamsburg with 2 other roommates. Airbnb was really starting to take off, and I realized that if I rented those 2 rooms out to tourists per night, that I could make a lot of money. So much money that I wouldn't have to pay rent. So I got rid of my roommates and started my Airbnb side hustle. From 2013 to 2016, I had those rooms booked almost every single night. I was emailing like crazy trying to manage all my Airbnb clients with my wedding clients, and I got really good at high volume communication. I made enough money so that after taxes, that Airbnb side hustle paid for all my rent and utilities. During that time, I was also well employed with my private lesson teachings, so my cash flow was really legit. During the later 2 years of that Airbnb side hustle, I was able to invest aggressively into the business by completely redesigning our sound system to accommodate over 300 guests, wireless microphones and in-ears for the band, as well as custom lighting for the reception. I bought myself a cargo van to move all the gear, and I was finally able to afford our first professional sound engineer. This was a total game changer. Up until that time, I had to do everything myself. Carry all the equipment, set it up, sound check, manage the band, call songs, MC, tear it down, load out. It was not sustainable as we were growing, and I was beginning to crack. The thing I realized was that I needed to push myself to the absolute limits in order to really squeeze the most out of myself before I started to break and need assistance. I got to where I would do a 200-guest wedding all by myself, but then I would spend the whole next day on the couch taking ibuprofen to reduce swelling in my knees and my lower back. I quickly realized that I needed to get in better shape if I wanted to keep doing this kind of work. So I joined a CrossFit gym, and this was easily one of the best investments of my life. After the initial shock of the first 2 months, I was going 5 times a week and made huge improvements in my strength and fitness. After 6 months, I had no problems loading up heavy subs and speakers into the van, and no knee and lower back issues the day after a big event. If I give any advice, it's to take care of your health, especially if you're in a physically demanding work environment. So by this time, I was pretty established in the industry and I was making big investments to promote my band. Every year, I was able to produce a video shoot with professional videographers and recording studios. I remember back in the day, my first budget for one of these was $600. And eventually, I was able to invest $5,000 to $6,000 per video shoot. Still, I was doing a lot of the work myself, including the mixing and video editing. 2016 marked a big milestone for me. I was finally able to quit my teaching job and pursue my business full-time. This was huge, and I'll never forget the feeling of quitting my very in-demand teaching job that paid over $100 an hour. No one quite understood why I would give that up, but at the end of the day, it was just holding me back. I was way too comfortable with that paycheck, and it wasn't leading to anything that excited me. There was no risk, just easy money. I realized that I didn't like easy money. I wanted something challenging that was difficult to acquire. Now I want to pause and talk about what it's like being a business owner and band leader. The key most important fact is that I am responsible for everything and everyone. If a band member is late to the gig, it's not their fault, it's my fault. If the volume is too loud during dinner, it's not the sound tech's fault, it's my fault. Everything that could ever go wrong during a wedding falls on my shoulders, and that creates a mountain of stress and anxiety. I remember when I started doing full wedding receptions, I was a nervous wreck the day before. I could not eat, I could not sleep, and it took me years to get to where I was able to work under such high pressure. At the end of the day, I was completely responsible for entertaining every guest on what is arguably a couple's most important day. The pressure is insane and I still get nervous. I've been able to cope with that stress by making sure that I'm over-prepared for every event. I've developed a whole system of checklists and backup plans in case anything goes wrong. And the week leading up to the event is meticulously structured with emails and phone calls to clients, planners, and venues to make sure that everything is on point. One important observation that I've made: the higher the pressure, the higher the paycheck. So learning to work under extreme pressure has been key to building my bankroll throughout the years. From 2017 to 2019, I now consider this the golden era. We were booked pretty much every Saturday night during wedding season. We had Sunday and Friday weddings. We had corporate events during the week, big overnight and destination weddings, parties and adventure retreats for the band. Things were great. I was consistently making sales that included ceremony music, cocktail hour, and full 8 to 12 piece band configurations for the reception. I was also providing photo booth services and DJs for after parties. It was during this era that I was personally making anywhere between $2,000 to $3,000 a night, and my payroll was $250,000 each of those last 2 years. Life was good. I got a nice apartment, bought a motorcycle, got a big fluffy dog, and let's not forget my cycling addiction. Just pure bling. Volume was so high that I couldn't keep up with demand. So in 2018, I started a second band. This was truly terrifying as a business owner. To fully trust a group of people to go out and execute a plan in a high-stress environment, this was just terrifying and took a lot of courage. But picking the right people made things really easy, and they hit the ground running. Now, did we actually play every Saturday night throughout the year? No. During January, February, March, we averaged about 1 gig a month. But since we had so much volume throughout the year with Fridays and Sundays, it averaged out to us if we were playing every single Saturday night. A few more things to note about the difficulties of being a band leader and business owner. Number one, managing musicians is very difficult. We're talking about people that have never had a corporate job. They are completely freelance and not tied to anything. At this point today, all of my crew is completely on top of everything, but I remember when it was so hard to get them to answer an email. I'd have to text them, call them, Facebook message them, run into them on the street. Hey, did you get my email? Then text them again later. They are all so busy trying to live their lives as artists and figure it out. I remember on an early gig where everybody in the band ended up being a substitute. I couldn't afford to pay them much back then, so they'd call me a week before, maybe even a day before the gig, and back out because they got offered a higher paying gig. Those moments were really hard to work through. Number two, managing clients can also be very difficult. I've been pretty good at attracting clients that are in line with my personality and my vision, but every now and then I'll sign a client that I know will give me hell throughout the whole process. High maintenance, lack of funding or disorganized budget, and disrespect for professional and personal boundaries, such as texting me on a Sunday at 9 a.m. This small percentage of clients can easily drain all your energy and instantly make you hate your job. So be careful who you work with. Number three, keeping up with market changes is really important and surprisingly difficult. The same marketing strategy and formula that I used in 2017 would be completely obsolete by 2018. There were way too many new bands driving all the prices down, And having a strong social media presence was a prerequisite just to be noticed by any clients. I had to be on my toes and constantly be thinking of new ways to market my brand. Number 4, as a business owner, you're responsible for keeping track of all expenses, balancing your accounts, and preparing for tax season. This can be especially difficult if you're handling high volume. I remember in the beginning, I put every transaction through my personal account. After a couple of years of that, it got really messy and I had to get a separate business account. Now I have over 12 bank accounts, 2 different banks, and a whole system of spreadsheets and software to keep my books in order. I also have an accountant that specializes in musician taxes. I'm also responsible for all business costs such as advertising, liability insurance, equipment maintenance, car payments, and legal fees. Not all that cash goes right into your pocket, so make sure your expenses don't leave you struggling to get by. 2020 was projected to be our biggest year yet. A huge calendar for both my bands. Gross revenue was supposed to be way up from 2019, and everything was moving forward. Then we all know what happened. After playing only one wedding in February, the pandemic shut everything down and I had to reschedule all of my clients. Most couples were awesome and understanding, but a few of those difficult clients got really difficult and lawyers had to get involved. All revenue was lost in a matter of weeks and legal fees were climbing. Things were very difficult, but fortunately, this kind of adversity was not totally foreign to me. I picked up the pieces, cut almost all my costs, and carried forward. Eventually, I had to leave New York and move in with family in order to avoid unnecessary debt. And that's where I'm at now. I'm currently working at $12 an hour in construction, waiting for things to get better so I can move back to New York and resume business. It's gonna take a lot of hard work to build towards another golden era. But if I did it once, I can do it again. So I hope this video has been helpful in getting to know the behind the scenes of a professional working band. It's been a really exciting 10 years and I'm looking forward to rebuilding over the next couple of years. If you have any questions about this process, feel free to leave a comment down below and subscribe to this channel for more videos like this one. I plan on doing a whole series about the business and back end of my band, so stay tuned for that. Thanks again for watching and see you soon. Peace.